Awesome. Let's see. Okay, so we are recording, and I'll make this full screen. I'll make this full screen. I said. There we go. Okay, can you see the folks in the room? You guys should move up. Don't be shy. So Justin, I'm going to try not to ask too many questions. Wow, what's happening?
He's actually doing that in real life.
Justin, can you hear us? It's looping something crazy.
Yeah, I see that. Hold on.
It's like
I'm doing that.
I'm trying to fix it. Here we go. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. So you guys move up so he can see people's faces. So
I'm not sure that I'll be able to make out faces because it's awful pixelated and
well, you can move over here, and you guys move up. Don't be shy. Aaron, you can move up. Okay, so it might be mainly audio, but so y'all, if you keep track of the Facebook page, man, the videos.
Just keep it like that.
So long as we have the audio, it's okay. So if you can hear us, we're good. So you guys know if you keep track of the Facebook group, you know who Justin is, and I'm gonna just let you guys talk. I won't speak unless there's 15 seconds of silence.
All right, let's go for that. Do you guys have any questions? I guess.
Give us an overview of like what you're doing right now, just to like kind of help us formulate more questions.
What I'm doing right now specifically, or
besides dancing and just like.
I don't know. I just got back from LA. I was shooting my first national spot out there that's going to be aired on ESPN for Warrior lacrosse gear. Just got back and doing like a weird political thing tomorrow that I'm a key grip on, and then I'm going to Nashville to shoot another spot for Warrior.
How did you get in contact with like that side of like the sports side of the film industry? How did you get in contact with Warrior?
It wasn't me actually. I just got hired by the director. He does a lot of work for Select Design actually in Burlington, and they kind of he contacted me to shoot something for them a few months ago, and since then we've done a few projects with them, and yeah, I don't know.
Are you working with those like lacrosse projects? Are you working with athletes, or are you working with like paid like actor athletes that they bring in?
They're definitely not actors. No, we've been working with mostly pro athletes, and then they have actors in the commercial, but like, you know, the main person, the like star of the thing is just a lacrosse pro. But they're actually pretty comfortable with being on camera because they end up having to, you know, do interviews and all kinds of other stuff. So, yeah.
So, where are you based out of right now?
I live in Bushwick in Brooklyn. I used to live in Red Hook, and then I moved over here like 6 months ago, mostly for convenience. I like Red Hook a lot, but you'll find out if you come to New York that, you know, the most important thing you can do is be off a convenient train so you can get to work easily.
And how is it starting out in New York from making the move there?
I mean, initially it's a little tough, you know. You got to kind of buckle down and be willing to take a lot of free work, and you know, just kind of be a friendly person who's, you know, up to meet people, work on weird projects, you know, do whatever comes along, and hopefully that leads to you getting, you know, bigger and better stuff along the way. When I first moved here, I did like 5 or 6 months of unpaid work before I got any decent paying jobs. And it was really just about networking and like meeting people who are now friends of mine that hire me for, work on a regular basis that, pays the bills. And, it's really, I have a friend who recently moved to New York who's trying to get started, and he's like, just took a part-time job at a coffee shop, which is like totally an all right thing to do. But I've been kind of trying to push him to, to be like, if you're working at a part-time job, is like, much as that makes sense for money, it's almost better to be broke and be like working on a bunch of free stuff in the industry, because trying to split your time and take off from your day job to get on 12-hour days like that you'll get called to do last minute is a really difficult thing to do. So it's almost better to kind of be broke and grind, do the whole like living on, a couch or something for a couple months until you establish yourself and figure out what you want to do. I feel like that's better than, getting a part-time job and just making ends meet, but then having to turn down every job that comes your way, It's a very tough choice to make, because I totally understand when I was here for the first 6 months, I was like, had no money and was like, eating terrible groceries from the grocery store and like living off nothing. So it's like, but it's something that's, it's worth it if you really care about what you're doing in the industry, or what you want to be doing.
Did you save up any money before the move to New York, or did you just kind of go for it?
I sold a camera that I had. Which I actually really regret now, but I sold my, I had a Leica film camera that I sold, and that pretty much gave me the first couple months rent. It was like I had a Leica M3 and three prime lenses that somebody gave me.
Was it a relative?
Which I still have. So.
Was it a relative's camera or something like that?
Yeah, it was. But I also, I don't know, I did have some money saved up, so it was kind of both. And then, I also didn't pay rent like the first 3 months I was here. Like I paid an initial rent to like get into the place, but then I was late for like 3 or 4 months, just like because I was taking a lot of free work. And I, figured it out after a while that like I started getting jobs that were, $100 to $150 a day. And once I started getting that consistently, it was enough to pay the bills. And then like, it just, it's a steady progression to better work. And best thing I can say though is to definitely just like grind through the first couple hard months, because after that, it gets a lot better. Yeah.
When you first moved out there, did you know anybody out there? Like, did you have any contacts out there, like, for work, or were you just kind of going out there knowing nobody?
No, I didn't know anybody, which was kind of, I don't know if it was the smartest thing, but it ended up working out. You'll spend a lot of time on Craigslist and on Mandy when you first moved here, probably. I would send out like 20 emails a day, just trying to get on whatever I could. I knew that I wanted to be in either camera department or grip and electric department, so I would just email for those jobs and kind of like, as like, weird as it is to say, I would just like kind of half lie or like make up my experience. I would talk up the stuff I did when I was at Champlain and exaggerate my experience to get on those first couple jobs that are, through Mandy and Craigslist. Because honestly, those jobs aren't really, they'll get you started and get you meeting people, but most of the time they're kind of, they're not the best jobs anyway. So if you got to like tell them you're a little more experienced than you are, and then you get on a set and you're kind of green, it's better to, fake it and learn a lot than to not,
Would you say, what would you say in that progression that you talked about of kind of like starting with nothing after school? What would you say is like the most important lesson you've learned from that?
It's something that's kind of changed now, but when I first moved here, I mean, it's really all. I guess the best lesson is just to like say yes to any job that comes your way, no matter what the thing is, because even if it sounds really terrible or it's going to be long hours or you're doing, a really crazy shoot, you still end up meeting people and learning things that you can like bring forward. I mean, I did this job that was like 21 hours a day, 3 days in a row, and it was like I got like 5 hours of sleep and I was working for free, and like I just lucked into the job because somebody passed my name on, and the DP was a very well-known commercial DP, and he ended up hiring me to work as a gaffer on like 4 or 5 really big projects after that, which were full rate jobs. So it was like I struggled through and got my ass kicked doing that stuff, but then that guy called me back because he knew I was willing to work. So the biggest lesson is just like take whatever comes along, and eventually you'll be able to be more selective once you like establish yourself and have relationships and you're working enough to like get consistent work. But in the beginning, it's all about just saying yes and really just being like always being there to like lend a hand when people don't expect it. Like when I'm on set, the biggest thing I hate to see is like younger guys or guys who like are they say they really want to work, and then I see them half the day on their cell phone, and I spend time on my cell phone on set too, but it's more about like those guys should always be there, especially if you're just getting into it, should be there to like, what do you need? What can I do for you? Do you want me to grab this? I can grab that, or like just ready to lend a hand. Or if you see people carrying stuff, biggest thing that makes me mad is when I'm like on set and I'm working my ass off with my crew, and then I see like a PA or an intern watching us struggle with something and they don't offer to help. It's like, don't just stand there, be active, and it's all about just trying to help other people, and it doesn't matter how much it's like what you can do to be just to lend a hand and be quick about things and just like be there to support the crew. I don't know. Trying to think if there's. You guys have any
best
other
worst
questions?
job you've been on? What's like the best job? What's the worst job, like experience wise?
Let me think about that. I've had a bunch of really good jobs. I've had some bad ones that I don't know if it's worth getting into the story because it could be a long one. I mean, the worst jobs are the ones where like you are giving your all, and the production and like the people that are your bosses or that hired you aren't treating the crew with respect, which happens a lot when you first get there and when you're first doing smaller jobs, and you'll do whatever you can to help this production out, but they don't do anything in return in terms of basic necessities of feeding people and keeping people comfortable. Those are always the worst jobs. They're the ones where you just don't feel respected. It's never anything that's like really terrible. It's mostly just like you don't feel like it's worth working for people sometimes. But then, the better jobs are like, the best jobs I've done are mostly ones that are good because I'm excited about the project. It's not really because there's anything special particularly about the job. It's more about just caring about the work that I'm doing. I don't know. I've done a couple music videos that I was really excited about because of the artist and because of what we were doing and people I was working with. Or like sometimes it's a total like nerd nerdy thing where like I'm excited about a new, light that I get to use or a new tool that I get to mess around with that I've never used before. It really depends. I've done a bunch of stuff that I'm really excited about, and it kind of like I'm excited about them for different reasons, I guess. I don't know if that answers the question.
It was sufficient.
Sweet.
Could you talk about your work on that Sundance film you posted a while back?
Yeah, that was one of my favorite jobs. I'd say that was a really good one. What do you want to know about it specifically?
Like, how did you get that opportunity to do it?
I got it in a kind of backwards way. A key grip friend of mine was hired before me, actually, which isn't standard. Usually the DP will hire the gaffer first, and they kind of hire the rest of the G&E crew. But my key grip friend knew the unit production manager, the UPM, and basically they had the gaffer that they did have on board had like a really good opportunity come up to go like shoot in India or something, so he had to bail on the job. So they had like 2 weeks before the production was coming up, and they were still looking for a whole G&E team. So the UPM contacted my friend who's a key grip and was like, hey, do you know any gaffers, and would you want to do this project? So basically my friend Ethan got hired on first as the key grip, and then he called me up, and he called up a bunch of his buddies and was like, hey, does anybody want to jump on this film? And at first I was kind of skeptical because like they didn't have a lot of money, and it sounded like it was going to be a long kind of intense shoot, but we were shooting on film, which is important to me, and I wanted the experience doing that. And I basically had like told the UPM that like if they were able to bump the rate up a little bit so that it's like, making at least enough to like cover my bills and stuff, and if I'm allowed to hire on an extra crew member so that we're not like killing ourselves labor wise, that I would do it. And he agreed to both things. So so I was like, hell yeah, I'm on board. And and then it turned into being actually it was tough, but it was a lot more of a rewarding project because the crew was all really great, and the producers, the director, the DP, everybody kind of become friends of mine, and they're all really great people to work with. So it was like never a struggle getting through the day. I always felt good about it. So yeah, I don't know. Any other questions about that one?
In terms of dealing with like, you talked about dealing with the unit production manager and like getting what you wanted out of it. What is like a good way you go about getting what you want from people in position of power over you? Like whether that be like a director or like a boss.
It's kind of a tough, it's a tough back and forth to have, because you got to ask yourself how much you want to do the project and what you're willing to do it for. And that varies like so much from project to project, especially in the non-union, independent film world, like our rates go from like, as low as $100 a day as like a friend, like doing that for a friend or something. I've been asked to do as low as $100 a day, and then can go as high as $700 or $800 a day. And it's like, what do you ask for on any given project is really tough. But you kind of like, for that one specifically, I had just done another feature and I was kind of exhausted, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do a feature, but the project sounds good. There's good actors on board, and the director's done good things before. And I just kind of told myself, I was like, I don't know if I can handle doing another feature right now, but if they'll bring up the rate a little bit and give me enough crew so that I'm not like, basically so that I have enough to get it done without like killing myself trying to like carry lights around all by myself, then I'll do it, And it's really just like, I mean, for that one, I was kind of, you got to be ready to be like, this is what I want, and if you can't do it, then I don't know if I can do the project. It's as simple as that. And when you first start, you don't really necessarily have that option. Like when I first started, I'd just take whatever I'd get, and I'd ask for good rates to sound. It's always good to ask and then see what they come back with, because you'll sound a lot more professional if you give them, a decent rate and you think you're worth a certain rate. And then they're like, well, on this project, we can only afford to give you this amount. Can you do that? You'll sound a lot more professional and being like, I'll work for $100 a day. I'll do whatever, you need. It sounds better to be like, listen, this is what my rate usually is, but I'll negotiate with you and we can figure it out. So it's a matter of, deciding how much you want to do the project and whether it's about money or whether it's about time and how hard the job's going to be. You just kind of make a list of things you want out of the job, and you bring that up to whoever is hiring you and be like, hey, I'm worried about these things. Do you think it's something we can work on, or do you think like, this is firm and this is the best you can do? And if it's the best they can do, if that's not worth the project to me, then I'll just not do the job. If it is worth it, I'll just stomach it and jump on anyway, But you don't really have that option in the beginning. It's kind of something that you like figure out along the way, Negotiating with producers, it's fun. It's very interesting, an interesting thing. It's even tougher when you like, for me, like when I'm trying to shoot, it's tough because, I get excited about shooting. Like, for instance, I'm shooting this underwater music video next week, and I'm like really excited about shooting underwater stuff. So I'm like, I'll work for whatever. Like, I don't care about the money, but at the same time, I'm like, well, you got to keep. You don't want to say that at the same time because you want to like sound like you're worth whatever you're asking for rate. So yeah, it's interesting. You learn how to become businessmen as well as filmmakers. Yeah.
Can you talk about deciding to buy a camera and how that's worked out?
Oh God, talk about a business. That's definitely turned into a lot more of a responsibility than I initially thought it would be. But I don't regret the decision. It's worked out pretty well. It was an interesting choice because a lot of people in New York are kind of leaning that way, especially if you want to be a cinematographer. You want to work as a DP. A lot of people are buying cameras because it seems to be a trend, or I don't know. It's like it didn't make sense when people were shooting film, but now the cameras are getting cheaper, and media. You don't have to work on film. It's becoming more of a trend amongst especially younger guys, I think, to try and get yourself established, which is maybe in some ways a cop out. It's like if I buy this camera, I can get work, but I can tell you that, it's definitely not true, but it is a nice thing to be able to market yourself with a camera. And my kind of decision, I did think when I first bought the camera that it would immediately, like, by promoting myself with the camera, it would lead to a lot more shooting work. And, I was kind of surprised that it wasn't that quick of a process, because if you don't have the clients to that want to rent that camera and want to make it happen, then it doesn't really make a difference. You still have to go out there and kind of like get your name out as a DP, which is, you know, an interesting process in itself. I just kind of have been pushing that I shoot, and like everybody I know that I work as a gaffer for, I kind of have been putting my name out and being like, yeah, I also work as a cinematographer. If you have any projects, you know, let me know. But yeah, the camera, the good thing about the camera is that it's not that unreasonable in terms of the price to buy it. I mean, our loan is pretty reasonable per month, and it's only a 2-year loan, which, you know, a camera's life is usually about 2 to 3 years in terms of like before it gets, you know, becomes obsolete, or there's bigger and better stuff out there. And the rentals we've gotten, you know, which I thought were going to be more significant, we have made enough to pay for the rental or pay for the loan every month. So it's basically like we have the camera for free with a little bit of responsibility on the side. Like we have to, you know, make sure we figure out insurance and figure out rental agreements and stuff. But yeah, I think it's been a really good investment because like I've met a lot of people that are, you know, just like very surprised when I tell them that I own the camera package, and they're like, wow, it kind of gets them thinking about you as somebody who's interested in shooting and interested in cameras and not just interested in lighting. So yeah, I don't know. It was a tough choice, but it didn't work out how I thought it would, but it's worked out well. If that makes sense. It's been a different process than I expected, but it's been cool and it's been pretty successful, I think.
What did it cost? What was the initial investment?
We invested 20. Well, we got a loan. We got a loan for 22,000, and then we invested about 15,000 in accessories, which was our own out of pocket. So me, Thompson, and my girlfriend Fletcher split the accessories, and then me and Thompson took on like the $22,000 loan. So total of 35, basically half out of pocket, half in a loan. So that adds up to like a little over $1,000 a month, which between the two of us is actually pretty reasonable. And it's been amazing that, like, you know, the camera has only grown in popularity because of firmware updates and everything else. And we're just getting to a point where we're, you know, making money off our rentals every month rather than just breaking even. But either way, I mean, it's pretty amazing that we have this camera and we're even able to just even just breaking even. It's like we have this great camera and we don't pay anything for it. It's pretty great. But it's definitely a scary investment. I will say that. And you'll learn things about the business side of filmmaking that you never really thought of, in terms of making sure you have you know, a rental agreement that legally covers your back if something breaks or if like something happens on a job, and making sure, you know, the company gives you a valid COI, certificate of insurance, so that if anything does go wrong on the job, you know, you're covered. We had somebody drop the camera on a shoot a few months ago, which was scary. But, you know, we had insurance and everything worked out, and the production company just figured it out and gave us a check for the amount to get it repaired, and we just sent it in. You know, it's like a scary thing, but it's definitely manageable once you kind of learn how all that stuff works.
I know you were only there for a week, but how did you like your time in LA, and how do you compare it to working in New
I like that it's warm. I don't know. I like LA. I liked LA a lot. I've thought about trying to work kind of bi-coastal. I don't know if it'll happen. I'd have to get a lot more clients out there. But like I would really like to eventually have space in New York and potentially in LA, or at least have like a place to stay with friends and kind of commute back and forth every once in a while. But I like living in New York, so it's a tough call. I mean, I would ideally just spend the winters there because the winters in New York are kind of brutal. But yeah, LA was a lot of fun. It's warm, and all the crew are super. Well, at least the crew I hired were super professional, mostly buddies of mine that hired on their own guys. And another great thing about LA is you get it's weird. You get gear for very affordable prices, but you get the locations cost like an insane amount more than New York, which I don't have to deal with that. It's more of a production side of things, but for getting gear, we got all this crazy gear for no money. It was pretty insane. But I know locations can cost $10,000 a day for a church for a day. My friend was shooting a film out there, and he had the toughest time finding a beat up old church. It was costing him $10,000 to figure it out. That being said, I got a crazy awesome Alexa package with a Panavision Zoom, a dolly, a couple big HMIs, and a Jenny truck for $4,000 total, which is insane. In New York, that would cost a lot more. And so you guys know I say $4,000, but it's obviously not coming out of my pocket, or maybe it's obvious. It's, production has that stuff figured out. They basically give me a number, and I figure out what kind of gear I can get for that amount of money. Yeah.
When you started working, you had obviously have the choice between New York, LA, or any other hub. Can you talk about why you chose to go to New York, and what kind of factors played into that decision?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a little different because I grew up in New York, in upstate New York, just a couple hours outside of the city, and I actually transferred schools to New York because I got in-state tuition, which meant my first year here, I took a bunch of financial aid and student loans out, and then I dropped out of school and kept the money to pay for my first 8 months of living here, which is a weird route to do it, and probably most people can't do that. But that's pretty much why I chose New York. I mean, I also chose New York because LA seemed like a big move, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing or what I wanted to do. So it was nice to be close to stuff I know and people I know, and kind of a way out if anything went bad, Whereas LA, it's a much bigger leap. But all my friends that have moved to LA are doing very well and are successful. So I think they're both valid choices. I think it's just about what makes sense.
Is there anything you wish you knew before you moved to New York? I guess you said you went there a lot and grew up in New York, but before moving, was there anything you wish you knew about living there, paying for stuff?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult to find an apartment. I will say that. It's a huge process. That's probably the hardest thing when you first move here is trying to figure out where you're going to live. Even when I like move from one apartment to another, it's like I dread it because you got to spend a good month and a half to find something affordable. You just look around until you get lucky, basically. I kind of knew that going in, so it's not necessarily something I wish I knew. But if you don't know, finding an apartment's pretty tough. Definitely doable. It's just a matter of looking at a couple hundred places until you find something. That's an exaggeration, probably. Maybe 100 places. I don't know.
What do rents cost? Could these guys expect to spend if they're just starting out?
Depends how long you want to look and how sketchy the neighborhood you live in is, or not even sketchy, or convenience. Sometimes it's just about convenience. I don't think anywhere in Brooklyn's really that sketchy anymore in terms of in terms of criminal whatever. It's like, I mean, there are places that you might think are kind of sketchy, but all the neighborhoods are alright. I mean, I've lived in Bushwick. My girlfriend lives in Bed-Stuy. I have a bunch of friends in Crown Heights, and they're all like neighborhoods that were once considered kind of sketchy to live in, but they're all kind of, they're all pretty alright. So if you want to live in Williamsburg, though, you can expect to spend $2,000 or more for a one-bedroom, probably. But if you want to live, in a convenient spot off the L and you search for a while, or off, the F or the A, I don't know. You can find stuff around, especially if you split with people, you can find stuff for around $700 a month. But finding a one-bedroom is really hard. It's a lot easier to find a 2 or 3 or 4 bedroom apartment for cheap. One bedrooms are where it really spikes up in price. So I recommend trying to move with people if you can, because it'll be a lot more affordable. If you do want a one bedroom, it's definitely going to be at the low end $1,200 no matter where you look, and probably more realistically around $1,400 or $1,600 for a one bedroom. But like I said, if you split it get a 3 bedroom, you can get it for probably still $600, $700 or $800 in that range. And be in a pretty decent neighborhood. I pay $750 and I'm in a 4 bedroom off the L in Bushwick, pretty decent neighborhood. So it's just about finding a place.
Where do you recommend staying away from right now in the city? If there's anything that's super sketchy.
Not really. I do recommend staying away from places in terms of convenience, but I know people that live in those places that say I'm an idiot and that those places are convenient. So I don't really know. I mean, I think being off, as long as you're off a main train that can get you to or get you to, really the places you want to be able to get to are 14th Street in Manhattan, and you want to be able to get to Williamsburg probably, because a majority of the jobs, and if you want to hang out with people and meet people after work, Williamsburg is definitely where most people go. So it's if you're off Williamsburg and you're off of 14th Street, you can get there pretty easily. Then I feel you can get to most of your jobs, and that's the most important thing for me anyway. So I'm off the L, which will get me anywhere on 14th Street, and it's direct line through Williamsburg. I'm also off the M, so I can get to downtown pretty easy. So yeah, it's mostly about train convenience in the city, so you can get places.
What about East New York?
I haven't been there in a while. I know it's considered, I mean, it's pretty sketchy. I probably wouldn't go that far out. But it's also not even convenient because it's pretty far. I mean, you have to take, I don't know, I have friends that live there. It's okay. It depends where you are. Even there, there are pockets of stuff that's sketchy. pretty much anywhere if you're living under above ground train is usually a bad call. It's like those are where the sketchiest neighborhoods usually are, oddly enough. So if you're living in a neighborhood where there's an above ground train, just live like a few blocks from the train. Don't live right at the train because it'll be A, really noisy, and B, those are usually like the sketchier areas. I would say that, like, I don't know. To me, there's no reason to really go out to like East New York or somewhere that far out because you can probably find a decent rent apartment in like Ridgewood or something, and it'd be a lot nicer. Ridgewood is, if anybody doesn't know, Ridgewood's in Queens, and it's just north of Bushwick. But basically, it's Bushwick, but just on the Queens side of things. And there's a lot of family houses over there. That's like a cheap, decent place to live. Yeah, I don't know. Any other questions?
I hear a lot of people saying that you shouldn't market yourself having like a lot of skills because you'll be considered like a jack of all trades but a master of none. But you have a lot of skills and you work in the camera department and G&E as like a key grip and a gaffer. So can you talk a little bit about like rising from a grip and a juicer to sort of those higher end positions and how do you market yourself to work in those different departments at the same time?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely better to be specialized, for sure, and to decide, what department and what you want to do as early as you can, because basically, every job you take is working towards, what you eventually want to be doing. So, for me, I came here knowing that, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do camera department or trick, but I decided that I want to be a DP, so it's like if you want to be a cinematographer, the best way to do it is to learn how to light, and cameras change every year, so like working as an AC is it's definitely a good skill to have, to know cameras well, but I don't think it's the best way to come up and be a cinematographer because you get to learn cameras, but if cameras are changing so often, it doesn't really get you anywhere. You still have to learn the next camera every time it comes out. And working as a gaffer, teaches me how to light things and teaches me how to kind of see from that perspective and see from purely visual and not technical, or it's technical and visual and creative, but it's not just knowing equipment. It's more about knowing how to use the tools and the equipment to create an image, So I kind of, after doing a couple G&E jobs, I realized that, being a gaffer was kind of the way to go. And I made a lot of connections doing G&E, and I kind of I'd take whatever job I could get, grip or electric, and I definitely, I'm definitely a better grip than I am an electrician. I'm definitely better at rigging. I'm better at building stuff than running power or doing dangerous tie-ins or things like that. So I kind of came up on the grip side and started working as a key grip. And I told people that, I'm a key grip, but I want to be a gaffer, and that's the way I'm trying to move my way up. So I didn't market myself as a jack of all trades. I marketed myself more as a grip who wants to light and wants to become a gaffer. And then I started getting work as a gaffer, and, whenever I worked as a key grip, I would always, I'm usually friends with whatever gaffer I'm working with when I'm a key, and I usually would talk to them, about lighting and about what their plans are for the setup and how they want to light it, and I would give suggestions. And I think that, led a lot of my gaffer friends to trust me as, someone who can light, and they would hire me to replace them on jobs. And that's kind of how you get started in whatever, at whatever level is, somebody just can't do a job and they're like, oh, Justin knows how to light, I'm going to call him to gaff this next project. So it's more about marketing yourself as whatever you're good at, but also trying to promote yourself towards the direction you want, I definitely, it's definitely like if someone's not trying to be a gaffer or a cinematographer, they're just trying to be a technician and work as a grip or an electric or juicer, I think it is, it's definitely better to just market yourself as that, don't try and say you can juice and you can grip, because people won't think you're good at either. They'll think you're adequate at both, so like if your end goal is to be a union electric or union grip and just work as that, then market yourself as that, and same thing goes if you want to be a gaffer, if you want to be a DP, you want to be a first AC, whatever. It's like get good at a specific field, but get good at a field that gets you closer to whatever you want to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was a really good answer.
All right. Any other questions? Was that Chris, by the way?
Yeah.
How's it going, man?
Good.
I think I owe you a can of canned air.
Oh, yeah, it's
My camera still has dust on it.
yeah, that was
It's
pretty
just
good.
covered in dirt from that job.
Yeah, my dimmer is still like pretty gross.
Yeah.
Maybe get Chris a job instead. Can you talk about union versus non-union? Like, is there a reason for these? Should they stay away from trying to be in that track? Should they try to get on that track?
It's a tough call. I think as an AC there isn't too much harm in joining, because 600 doesn't, IATSE 600 doesn't, which is the camera union, doesn't, I've heard they're not great at getting you work, but they, you still get all the benefits, but they're not super great at trying to find you work. And a lot of union ACs I know still can do non-union work and not get penalized for it on a certain level. But so I don't see a huge disadvantage from going camera union. For the grip and electric union, local 52, I think that it's just a choice depending on what you want to do. If you want, like I said, if you want to be a technician and you want to work, as a grip or as an electrician, a best electric, whatever you want to work as, I think the union is a good route to go. Because they pay well. It's good to have the benefits, and you work on you end up working on bigger jobs. But it's a process. When you join the union, you start out as like somebody who's just running cable as like a additional electric or as like a fifth electric or whatever, and all you're doing is just like constantly you walk 50 pounds of cable out and drop it, and then you roll a muscle cart, drop another piece of cable, and walk that 50 yards or 50 feet out, and then drop another, And for me, it's like I've done some union electric jobs, and I don't want to do that for 5 years before I'm doing something better and doing something creative. So it doesn't really make sense to me, but I know a lot of people that do it because it's consistent work, and the grip and electric union will get you work. I mean, they'll call you up and be like, hey, do you want to do this job? It's like, you know, this is the rate, this is the tier. Do you want to come do it? Where the camera union doesn't necessarily do that. So it's definitely good because it gets you a lot of work. But if I'm already working consistently as a gaffer, non-union, I don't see a reason in joining, especially if I want to be a DP and I want to work as a DP and not as a gaffer. It's kind of a step in a direction where I'm just going to get stuck doing that work for probably 10 years or so before I'm even working as a gaffer again, you know? So yeah, it's like, I think if I decided I didn't want to work as a DP anymore, I would work as a gaffer and non-union until I established myself with DPs that went union and I could find union work as a gaffer, and then I'd try and switch over, if that makes sense.
Anybody else? Nick, you got anything? Justin, he's been working in New York for, what, like 3 years, Justin?
Yeah, about.
Any questions about living in New York, where you get food? Do you keep a car or a truck or something?
I don't. I have thought about it, especially owning a camera now. There's convenient things about having one in Brooklyn because it's not terribly difficult to park depending on where you live. And it's useful for getting, your camera and your gear to set. But I mean, when you first move here, I don't think it really makes a lot of sense because the public transit's so good. Yeah, I don't know. I've thought about it, but even with the camera, like it's a thing to just tell the production to figure out a way to pick it up if they're renting it. It's kind of not up to you. I do it on if it's a smaller project, it'd be nice to have a car so that I could bring my camera to set without having to put that burden on the production. But half the times I rent it, I just tell them to, bring one of the vans they rented or rent a van and come pick it up,
And that's pretty standard for a production in New York to have transpo or PAs that are running around picking stuff up.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know a lot of people that just carry their gear to set, and I don't really understand it because, usually they can figure out how to pick it up if you got gear and they're paying for it, So for me, I've seen reasons why a car could be convenient, but there's kind of too many reasons that it's inconvenient to make it worth it,
Yeah, I used to get like around $200 in tickets a month when I lived in New York, parking tickets. It's just hard.
Yeah, I had a car. I tried to move here before I went to Champlain, actually. And I was in New York for a month with a car, and I got like $500 in tickets. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
So, Justin, I just wanted to. Your perspective is that for you really enjoy being in the film industry in New York. New York's a good place for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Anybody? Any last questions for Justin? Let's give Justin a round of applause. And Justin, I have everybody come up and say thank you to you so you can see their faces. So I know we can't see you, but you'll be able to see them in close up. They're gonna say thanks, and I'll buy you a cup of coffee next time I'm in New York, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course, anytime. Thanks.
Okay, dude. You guys should say thanks.
How's it going, Justin? Thanks for talking with us.
Hey, Justin, thank you. Thank you for talking with us today, Justin.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks for answering our questions, Justin. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks, Justin. Have a good one.
Thank you, Justin. It was awesome.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for your time, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yo, thanks, Justin. Also, thanks for the help with the lighting situation I was having.
Yeah, anytime, man.
Thank you.
Okay, man. I'll see you later.
All right, take it easy.